Hello there, good morning, everybody. This is Pastor Shibu John from Toronto, Canada, on the 12th of March, 2026. This morning, we are going to meditate from First Chronicles chapter 29 and verse 16. First Chronicles chapter 29 and verse 16. Lord God, all this abundance that we have provided to build you a house for your holy name, it is from your hand, and everything is yours. Our focal point for today's meditation is seeking God's wisdom. Seeking God's wisdom. Apostle Paul said about giving, and God will generously provide all you need. Then you will always have everything you need and plenty left over to share with others. That's what he wrote to the Corinthian believers. We read that in 2 Corinthians chapter 9 and verse 8. In stewardship, we are giving what the Lord has provided for us. Then he provides some more, which allows us to give more. What a wonderful cycle of sufficiency. King David said, everything comes from you, and we have given you only what comes from your hand. You know what? God's ownership. God's ownership. That's what we are talking about. King David acknowledged that wealth and honor originate with God. Stewardship begins with the recognition that everything we have is ultimately God's, and we are caretakers rather than absolute owners. And what about God's sovereignty? It's calling God, the ruler of all things, places human stewardship under divine authority. Calling God, the ruler of all things. That's what we call sovereignty. Our management of resources, influence, and abilities should align with God's purposes and commands, not merely personal preference. And God is enabling. He's enabling us to do that. In our hands, our strength and power reminds us that our capacity to give, lead, and serve comes from God alone. Effective stewardship depends on relying on His strength, wisdom, and provision, not solely on our abilities. Stewardship as worship and trust. How about that? King David's statement follows the nation's generous giving for the temple of God. His prayer frames giving and service as acts of worship, thanksgiving, and dependence on God, not status seeking or self-sufficiency. And in that, there are some practical consequences. Reframing possessions as entrusted resources to be used for God's purpose. Church, family of God, justice, charity. You know what? Give and serve out of gratitude and trust, not obligation or pride. Always seek God's wisdom and strength in decisions about money, time, and gifts. And what about the humility? Acknowledge God as your source and aim stewardship toward His kingdom rather than personal gain. Stewardship is a humble, God-centered response, recognizing His ownership and sovereignty, relying on His strength, and using entrusted resources to honor Him and advance His purposes. Once a theologian said, the less I spend on myself and the more I give to others, the fuller of happiness and blessing did my soul become. Have a very blessed day, and God be with you.